Hey everybody, we're back for part 2 of the weathering tutorial, and this is mainly for Jeff, but it can go out to anybody that's on my subscriber list, or even you guys that aren't on it. Just doing some quick and easy rusting techniques for you guys that don't have an airbrush. And in the first video that I done, we talked about the two different type of weathering systems. One was the cake style, and the one we're going to be doing this time is the separate powders. To get prepped for this, have your part, which I already have right here. This is just kit plastic. Nothing's been done to it. This is straight out of the kit, and I just drilled a hole in it and stuck it on this toothpick for the tutorial. And I've got a piece of paper down here underneath of it for this part. I'll show you how this works here in a minute. But definitely keep this paper clean, or when we get up to... I'll actually tell you when we get to the point of needing this piece of paper and what it's for. So just have it sitting over to the side of your workbench or whatever before we go into that step. And let's see, so we have our part, we have our paper. Go ahead and open up your weathering powders and have them ready to go, and have your applicator ready to go. All that's sitting there. Now on this is going to be a very simple way to do it as far as not needing an airbrush. We're going to be brushing the paint on. And I'm using a fairly wide brush here, about a 1/4 inch wide, maybe a little over. And you can do this with enamels, you can do it with acrylics, you know, pretty much whatever paints you want to. You can do it with the Tamiya paints, which are acrylic, but they tend to dry real fast, so you don't get the effect, I guess you could say, that we're looking for. This technique, we're going to be putting a little bit of texture in it. So when you look at it, you will actually see some roughness in the rust, and that works real good on old exhaust manifolds. But you have to be careful because you don't want to get it too far out of scale. But what I'm going to be using for this one is I have some of the Vallejo, and this is called Dark Rust. And we're just going to shake this up. And like I say, we're going to brush this on. And this makes it real easy for the guys that do not have an airbrush. You can sit right here at your workbench and do this, and you don't have to worry about, you know, spray booth and all that, or spray can. And this Vallejo paint seems to brush out very well if you use the right brush on it. You don't get a lot of brush strokes. So I went ahead and just took the dropper out of the bottle here so I can get the brush down in here, because this is a wider brush. So we're just going to load the brush with some of this dark rust color. And I'm not going to paint this whole entire tank. I'm just going to do pretty much the face of it here, just to give you an idea of how this technique works. And this Vallejo is, the brush on style is a pretty thick paint. Not real thick, but it does self-heal like an enamel. So when you brush it, you don't have once it dries, you don't have a lot of brush strokes in it. So what we're doing now is we loaded the brush pretty good. We're just covering the surface with this dark rust, which is a real dark brown color. And like any other brush paint, you don't want to work it too much. You don't want to put too many brush strokes in it. But we've got a coat down on there. And I've got a block of foam sitting over here right off camera that I'm sticking that in right now, so I can get one more dip of the paint out of here. And I've got the brush loaded. And this is where you have to be a little quick. Now, this paper that I put down here, it's down here for a reason, and as I'm brushing this on, I'll explain why. These powders, they are quite expensive. Like I said, this is about a $20 kit that's here. And you want to try to keep as much of that stuff as you can. So I put the piece of paper down, and once we get this second coat on here, just like that, I've got that, and it's wet. The whole surface is wet right now, so it's all colored in and it's wet. We're going to set the brush over to the side, and then you want to take your bristle end, your brush end of your makeup brush, and just pick out whatever color rust powder you want to put on it. I'm going to go with this darker brown here. And what we're going to do with this is we're just going to actually hold the brush over top of the wet Vallejo paint. And we're just going to kind of flick the brush And as you can see, a lot of this powder is dropping onto this piece of paper. Now what you want to do with that is once you're done with this whole technique, you just take this piece of paper, fold it, and you can dump it right back in your bin, and you're not losing a whole bunch of powder. And you can vary the texture, you know, on how much you put on, how much of the effect that you want by doing it this way. And what's happening is it's sticking in the wet paint. And we'll see if we can get the camera to see it here. You can see the texture right there in the highlight across the top. And that's like that all the way around. And you can also go in at this point in time if you want to add a little bit of a variance in the color. You can go in. Now I scrubbed a little bit of this off just to get the darker color off here on the paper towel. And I'm going in now and I'm going to get a little bit of the lighter tone. And you can drop that in a couple areas while it's still wet. And you want to try to do this pretty quick. And if you're really worried about saving a lot of material, make sure you have 2 pieces of paper, or you're doing this on, you want to do it on 2 separate pieces of paper, because one of them is going to be dark, you want to put that in there, and one of them will be light, and you want to put that in there. But for the tutorial, we're not going to separate them or do any of that. That just, you know, gives you an idea on how to save some of this material. And we dropped some of the lighter tone on there. Now what you do is just let all this dry up, and once all the paint and everything's dry, this powder will be adhered to it. And then the same as the other technique that we used in the first video, take some of your flat clear and just lightly go across this and seal it in. Don't spray a heavy coat of clear, because if you do, it will take this powder and it will actually make the powder blend in and you don't have the texture in it. But if you just miscoat this real easy with some flat clear, it'll seal it down, your part's nice and flat, and it will give you a nice rust effect. So hopefully that answers Jeff's questions on that. And if Jeff or anybody else out there has any more questions or concerns on this technique or how to do a rusting technique, send me a PM or a message or a comment on the video, and we'll see if we can help you out even further. So that's all we've got for this one. Like always, I thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.